Well, Iraq had been a member in good standing of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. It had a full-scope IAEA safeguards, and the IAEA had never raised a serious issue. And then all of a sudden we find that in fact they have this huge nuclear weapons program underway. So it really sent a message that the old approach of inspectors going to the places that the state tells them about and looking at the things that the state says they should look at and not thinking about what may be going on someplace else that the state doesn't want them to know about isn't really going to work anymore. We need to focus on the state as a whole.
So the realization that they had had a secret, dedicated weapons program that remained undetected and to some extent unsuspected called into question the efficacy of the safeguards system, and those critics who doubted that the system was sufficient had a lot of grist for their mill.
And they were found also on sites that IAEA inspectors had visited before on a non-intrusive basis. Then it was a significant shock. It was a significant blow to the credibility of the existing, if you want, regime of safeguards.
The system is designed to give states the confidence to remain without nuclear weapons because they know their neighbors aren't getting nuclear weapons either. And what that said was, maybe the system as it exists right now isn't really good enough to give us that confidence that our neighbors aren't getting nuclear weapons. And so states sort of joined together and said, let's build a stronger system. Let's build a system that gives the IAEA access to more information, access to more places, easier ways for its inspectors to get in and out of countries in a hurry, and a variety of other tools that allow the system to be more effective.
I think that the obvious conclusion to come out of the Iraq experience of 1991 and aftermath was that the existing system was inadequate. And so there was an effort undertaken to strengthen the safeguard system, particularly by augmenting the IAEA's powers of inspections and rights to information. And out of this reform process came something known as the Additional Protocol, which essentially was a model agreement, voluntary to member states, that in fact conferred on the IAEA additional rights of inspection and additional rights to information. And so the hope was that this would be sufficient to prevent future Iraq-like surprises.
The changes in the IAEA safeguard system weren't immediate. And it is important to understand that what the IAEA was able to do in Iraq after 1991 is something they will probably never be able to do in most other countries, because Iraq was a defeated state and the UN Security Council imposed an inspection regime on Iraq that states in general aren't going to just voluntarily offer into. Iraq was subject to anytime, anywhere inspections with almost unlimited resources for the inspectors because it was being funded out of Iraq's oil revenue, again, legally imposed on it by the Security Council when Iraq had been militarily defeated. That's not a situation that's going to exist in other states. Neither the resources that were available to the IAEA nor the authority that was available to the IAEA are going to exist in other countries in general. But it took a period of years after the Iraq episode to really negotiate out the new additional protocol system. And then even once the additional protocol had been negotiated, then one by one states had to accept it. And then even when states had accepted it and the IAEA had begun carrying out the new kinds of inspections and information exchanges with states under the additional protocol, it then took a period of years to really sort of build the full potential and build a new system. In fact, I would say it's still a work in progress, really shifting to a state-centered approach rather than a sort of facilities and criteria. We're going to do this many inspections because there's this much plutonium at this facility, rather than we're going to do this many inspections because our overall knowledge of what's going on in the state suggests there's this level of concern, and this number of questions that need to be answered about the state's activities. That's really a big conceptual shift in how safeguards are done.
It has been effective in the sense that those countries' denial of the IAEA's inspections is a red flag. It says these countries may be hiding something. What are they hiding? So it puts attention onto those countries, even when those countries won't let you go in to see what they're doing. There are increasingly different ways of monitoring and sampling the environment and testing, testing for vibrations in the earth, testing for radiological materials in the atmosphere, etc. So when countries say we're not going to let you in, we're not going to sign this additional protocol, it's a red flag around those countries as having potential ambitions. Some of them may have simply concerns over sovereignty and intrusiveness, but nonetheless it tells you you need to look at those countries more carefully.
Many skeptics would say that the problem of covert dedicated programs still has not been fully or satisfactorily addressed. This is in some ways an intractable problem because you never know what you don't know. It's not entirely the case that the IAEA should be regarded as the full solution to the problem of dedicated covert weapons programs because the IAEA has a limited legal mandate, that is to inspect declared facilities, and it has limited limited portfolio of instruments it can apply. It is not an intelligence agency. It does not have intelligence capacities. It doesn't have satellite reconnaissance. It doesn't have eavesdropping technologies. It does inspections, right? So it really requires some sort of collaboration between the IAEA and key member states to flush out the repertoire of information available to the IAEA. The goal, I think, over the long run is to sort of maximize the levels of transparency that can be achieved. The additional protocol goes a long way in that direction, but there are, at the technical level, a lot of additional steps that could be taken.